Nestled within the sun-kissed embrace of the Mediterranean, Malta boasts a treasure trove of Neolithic wonders. These temples, older than the Great Pyramids of Giza, stand as silent witnesses to a civilization lost in the mists of time. In Malta, the Neolithic began around the year 5000 BC, known to archaeologists as the Gar phase. It's at this time that we see the first evidence of human habitation on the islands. These first settlers came from Sicily, which sits just north of Malta and Gozo, bringing with them the already developed technologies and understanding of the European Neolithic. This period saw a further two phases of cultural development represented in the archaeological record by the outlines of simple hut structures or pottery shards. Neolithic life continued in the trends of the mainland, that is, until 4100 BC. 900 years after the first human settlers landed on Malta, a new and unique tradition began. Using the resources available, monumental buildings were erected. These buildings are believed to have been temples and were built by quarrying local limestone blocks, which were then shaped and literally rolled into position using carved and shaped balls also made from limestone. Many of these rollers were then simply discarded in the surrounding space and can often be spotted by modern visitors to the sites. These temples are some of the oldest man-made structures, with the Temple of Ggantija, named the oldest freestanding building in the world. The temple period lasted from 4100 BC through to 2500 BC, and is separated into 5 phases, each classified thanks to distinct changes in either material culture, such as pottery design, or by the differences in the structural design of the temples themselves. Though the temple period spanned over 2000 years, it was between 3000 BC to 2500 BC, known as the Tarxien phase, that the culture of Neolithic Malta saw its peak. Each of these temples was once enclosed, with large stone slabs acting as roofs. Though none of these have survived in such a state, the Neolithic people of Malta left us with 2 very useful pieces of evidence. The first is a tiny carved figure of a megalithic building found at the Hagar Temple. The small artifact was carved from a piece of limestone, complete with a trilithon entranceway and a roof, which is shown to have consisted of 7 horizontal slabs. This figure dates to sometime between 3800 BC to 3600 BC. The second clue as to how these structures once appeared inside is found at the Hypogeumm at Hal Saflieni. Beneath the ground, a series of passageways and rooms were carefully carved into the sandstone rock of the island. At first glance, the Hypogeumm would seem to strictly have been a place for the dead, with an estimated 7,000 individuals represented by skeletal evidence. Despite this, however, some details of the Hypogeumm would suggest a dual use, perhaps as not only a tomb, but also a form of sanctuary. It's in the second side, as it were, at Hal Saflieni, that we see the second clue as to just how the Neolithic temples would have appeared all those years ago. Part of the wall and ceiling of room 26 of the Hypogeumm have been carved, creating a step-like feature leading from the doorway up to the roof of the chamber. A similar effect was achieved at another of the temples above ground. Using corbelling rather than carving, the Temple of Mnajdra was also designed to share this stepped upper wall. It's fascinating to note that the supporting pillars seen at Mnajdra, which would have held the weight of the roof, are also seen carved into the rock of Hal Saflieni, where they would have served no structural function. While naturally, these ancient temples would differ somewhat from each other, with each having their own distinct differences, they all share a common layout. In general, if you were to walk through a temple complex, you would first notice the facade. This front side would have an entranceway somewhere around the center, built using 3 limestone blocks forming the iconic trilithon. This facade would conform to a slight oval shape that forms a courtyard for the temple. If you were to then walk through the entranceway, passing under the lintel stone, you would be confronted by 3 chambers, 1 to each side, and a third ahead of you. These chambers can either be open or hidden by an internal wall and portal. This separation would have provided access and privacy for whatever activities the Neolithic temple goers conducted within. So, what were these temples used for? While the Neolithic temple builders left us no written record, we can learn something about their beliefs through the artwork they left behind. The artwork has been noted by archaeologists and visitors alike as being as intricate and complex as the temples themselves. On walls, figures of animals such as cattle, pigs, or goats are commonly seen, accompanied by spiral motifs which take on the appearance of leafed vines. While aesthetically pleasing, these don't reveal as much about the ancient beliefs of Malta's Neolithic as the statues that have been found within the temples do. Statues, now referred to as mother goddesses, depicting corpulent human figures, have been recovered from many of these religious sites. Alongside a variety of carved limestone phalluses, these are believed to be linked to the concept of fertility. These are not the only figures found in the temples, however. In the temple of Tarxien, at least a couple of up to 2-meter tall statues of the mother goddess have been found. Both of these once stood on a pedestal, complete with the spiraling motif seen throughout the island's temples. It's been suggested that these sites may have held not only a religious function, but also one of healing. Small depictions of varying spare body parts are common finds. Carved limestone or baked clay limbs, heads, hands, and feet can be seen in Malta's museums. One theory is that these were left at the temple sites as votive offerings in exchange for the hope of better health. Some temples, in addition to the figures and statues, were built to hold some astronomical meaning. Mnajdra and Hagar Qim, for example, both are positioned in such a way that during the spring and autumn equinoxes, the sun passes through the temple to illuminate a rear wall, and in the case of Mnajdra, a sacrificial altar. Around this altar, and others seen in other temples, archaeologists have found flint or obsidian blades, and the bones of animals who were likely sacrificed upon the altars. Though all these years later, there's no real way to tell. It's probable that the altars were used during these events in some form of ritual, likely fertility related. As farmers who relied on both the sun and the fertility of their soil, this must have been an important rite to observe. Perhaps related to this, drilled holes can be seen both outside the trilithon doorways and by the altars themselves, perhaps once used as anchor points for ropes attached to cattle or goats who awaited their end upon the altar. To return to the idea that the temples doubled as houses of healing, figures of the mother goddess have been found depicted lying on her side, and in some cases covered in a sort of decorated blanket. It's been suggested that this, as mentioned in the book Malta by David Trump, could be a representation of the rite of incubation. This practice is when a worshipper sleeps within a sanctuary in the hopes of receiving divine healing or assistance through spiritually induced dreams. Unfortunately, time has robbed us of exactly how these ancient peoples viewed spirituality and belief, and what little we have been able to gather from their remains is of course subject to interpretation. Even so, I believe it's important to try and understand the world our ancestors lived in, and in doing so, show respect to those who walked on our planet before us. If you found this video interesting, why not check out my links in the description below. On Instagram, I post prehistoric content daily, and over on Patreon, I will be posting exclusive videos like this one, as well as giving early access to future content. Either way, if you've made it this far, thanks for checking out my YouTube channel, and I hope to catch you in the next one.